Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang saranang gacchami, Dhammang saranang gacchami, Sanghang saranang gacchami, Dutiyampi Buddhang saranang gacchami, Dutiyampi Dhammang saranang gacchami, Dutiyampi Sanghang saranang gacchami, Tatiyampi Buddhang saranang gacchami, Tatiyampi Dhammang saranang gacchami, Tatiyampi Sanghang saranang gacchami. So, welcome friends to this Wednesday evening Sutta class, first one of this year. And so this evening we are going over two fairly short suttas in the Anguttara Nikaya, the book of the eights, number 73 and number 74, on the contemplation of death. And the contemplation of death is a very important training in the development of our Dharma practice, because the importance of the meditation on death is to develop the sense of urgency to try to, practice the Dhamma as much as we can before, the inevitable moment of death arises. And the problem is that we don't know when death will happen, and life is uncertain. The only thing that's certain in life is actually death, because life is not certain. People could you could be dead tomorrow, or in 3 days, or in 1 week, or in 1 year, or 20 years, or by many kind of reasons. So, and the time of the death is not known in advance. So we don't have the pleasure of saying, well, I'll wait to practice more intensively, when I retire, or in a number of years, because, because of any number of circumstances. We could die, on a moment's notice, or in a very short notice. So it's mainly to develop a sense of urgency, not to procrastinate one's practice, especially of the meditation practice. So these two sutras are about that using the contemplation of death and how to use that to stimulate and motivate our practice. So I'm going to actually, there's two sutras in this section, and I'm going to do the number 2 first. If you read in the attachment that I sent out, there was a contemplation of death number 1 and contemplation of death number 2, but actually I'm going to start with number 2 because it's it goes better in that order in explaining them. number 2 first and number 1 as it's listed in the text second. So the Buddha addressed the monks. He said, monks, mindfulness of death, when developed and cultivated, is of great fruit and benefit, culminating in the deathless, having the deathless as its consummation. And so it's not that the meditation on death itself brings the deathless, although it could, but it instills the urgency to practice, morality, concentration, and wisdom, basically. And especially of, developing mindfulness and concentration, and developing the 4 foundations of mindfulness, the 7 factors of enlightenment, which includes also, reaching the jhanic levels of concentration through that practice of cultivating the 4 foundations of mindfulness and the 7 factors of enlightenment, although that's not mentioned specifically in this sutra, but again, it's inferred. A lot of times when you're reading the suttas, it infers that some other things accompanying with it. And it infers, especially in this case, that one is practicing the meditation. So anyway, so he says, how does a person practice this mindfulness of death? And this is how a person should practice, okay? When day has receded, when the day is finished and night is coming on, a monk reflects, or it could be anybody, but he was talking to monks. A monk reflects this: I could die on account of many causes tonight. A snake might crawl into the room or my bed and bite me, or a scorpion or a centipede may sting me, and I might thereby die. That would be an obstacle for attaining enlightenment before I died. Or I might stumble and fall down, or my food might disagree with me, or my bile might become agitated. My phlegm might become agitated. Sharp winds in me might become agitated. So he's talking about the 4 elements. Or people might attack me. Wild spirits might attack me, and I might die. That would be an obstacle for me. So this is the essence of the contemplation of the death, seeing that by any of these things, and you could, we can add our contemporary causes of death too, like getting killed in an auto accident, right? Or getting killed in any number of natural disasters, which happens all the time. I mean, we've already talked about that. So, but, and then not only that, but then the bhikkhu should also reflect, do I have any bad, unwholesome qualities in me that have not been abandoned, which might become an obstacle for me if I were to die tonight? So the object is, if we die and our mind still is harassed and afflicted by, greed, hatred, all the defilements of the mind, and, they have not been purified, then again, the mind, and especially if you haven't attained stream entry, that the mind could be reborn in any number of unwholesome destinations because of the accumulated karma. So this is how a person should reflect. And upon reviewing his mind, if the monk knows, I have bad, unwholesome qualities that have not been abandoned, which might become an obstacle for me if I were to die tonight, then he should put forth extraordinary desire, effort, zeal, enthusiasm, indefatigability, mindfulness, and clear comprehension to abandon those unwholesome qualities. Just as one whose clothes or head had caught on fire would put forth extraordinary effort, zeal, enthusiasm, mindfulness, and clear comprehension to extinguish the fire on his clothes or head. In the same way, that monk should put forth extraordinary desire, effort, zeal, enthusiasm, mindfulness, and clear comprehension to abandon those unwholesome qualities. So that's how one should review about the unwholesome qualities. And if there's any there, one should there and then make the effort to try to, weaken, reduce, or eliminate those unwholesome qualities. And how do you do that? By practicing better, observing the precepts, especially of mindfulness, concentration, and wisdom, and applying the efforts to overcome those negative types of thoughts in the ways that we've already, gone over in so many of the suttas. So, this is already, again, an example of that, inferring that one already knows how to do that. But if upon review, the person knows, I do not have any bad, unwholesome qualities in me, which might become an obstacle if I were to die tonight, then he should dwell in that same rapture and joy, training day and night in the wholesome qualities. So by reviewing your mind, if you understand, whatever wholesome qualities you have, you should, delight in continuing developing those wholesome qualities, and at the same time, abandoning any unwholesome qualities. Of course, if one doesn't have any unwholesome qualities, one would already be at least an anagami or an arahant. But so, by reviewing your mind, you'll see that if you've worked on successfully reducing, greed and hatred and delusions, then you can rejoice in that, but continue to practice to eliminate any subtler tendencies. So somebody who's attained the state of a sotapanna should then also reflect, well, I still could have six more lifetimes to go if I don't reach once returning. So even a sotapanna should strive to purify the remaining fetters that he still has. And again, we're assuming that you remember the 10 fetters in the 4 stages of enlightenment. And a once returner also should strive to eliminate the remaining little bits of greed and hatred that he still has, and the other higher fetters to hopefully reach the anagami level or in the arahant level. So so that's how and when because all of that I just mentioned was what he reflects on when the night is coming. As we read in the first part of the sutra, when the day is finishing and the night is approaching, then the bhikkhu reflects on that. Now, the second part of that is, but when the night has receded, when the night is over and the new day is dawning, then the bhikkhu reflects all of that again. That during the day, I could die on account of all those causes that we already talked about, that were mentioned in the first part. So I'm not going to repeat them all. And then he should reflect, do I have any bad, unwholesome qualities that are not abandoned yet? And if he does, to eliminate them. And if he sees that he doesn't have any bad, unwholesome qualities, he can rejoice in that and continue his practice until he, reaches a further stage, if he, at least on the never returning or arahantship. And then, so having said that, he says, monks, when mindfulness of death is developed and cultivated in this way, it is this that is of great fruit and benefit, culminating in the deathless, having the deathless as its consummation. So it's not necessarily one type of, contemplation of death, like just visualizing your skeleton or something like that, although those things could lead to insight and allow a person to attain enlightenment too. But basically, it means, cultivating all the factors of the Eightfold Path, especially of the Sila, the Samadhi, and the Panya. So that is, how one develops the sense of urgency, whether in the daytime or in the nighttime, because people die at night also, don't they? People die of a heart attack or a stroke in their sleep at night. So, even before you go to bed, to examine the mind. So this is how, one uses the contemplation of death. Now, I'm going to go back to the first of the suttas that I had sent out in the attachment. But again, if anybody has any questions, you can write them down in the chat box for when we finish this. So this is a different way to practice. I mean, before you were saying in the sutta we just read, it was about, when it's night coming on, to reflect like that. Or when the night is finished and the day is starting, to reflect like that. But then this next one is even gives even more urgency. It's not just about spending one night or one day thinking about that, and but it's how we do it, was explained in in that one we just went over. So this is the first one. So again, the Buddha was addressing the monks. And he repeats what he said in the other sutta. Says, monks, mindfulness of death, when developed and cultivated, is of great fruit and benefit, culminating in the deathless, having the deathless as its consummation. That means the state beyond birth and death. And then he asks, but do you monks, do you develop mindfulness of death? He's asking them. And then this one monk, he says, Bhante, I develop mindfulness of death. And then the Buddha asks him, but how, monk, do you develop mindfulness of death? And then he kind of proudly tells the Buddha, he says, here, Bhante, I think like this. May I live just a night and day so that I may attend to the Buddha's teaching, practice the Buddha's teaching. I could then accomplish very much in, one night and a day. That is the way I develop mindfulness of death. And then another monk speaks up, says, I too, Bhante, develop mindfulness of death. And then the Buddha asks him, but how do you, monk, develop mindfulness of death? And so the second monk replies, I think like this, Bhante, may I live just a day so that I may attend to the Blessed One's teaching. I could then accomplish much. It is in this way that I develop mindfulness of death. So this is similar to actually the first part of the previous sutta that we read. One monk is practicing a night and a day, and another monk is practicing just in the day. And that's the way he develops mindfulness of death. Then a third monk speaks up and tells the Buddha, I too practice mindfulness of death. And the Buddha asks him, well, how do you practice? And that monk tells the Buddha, I think like this, may I live just a half a day so that I may practice the Buddha's teaching. I could then accomplish much. This is how I practice mindfulness of death. And then another monk speaks up and says, well, this is how I practice mindfulness of death. He says, may I live just the time it takes to eat a single alms meal so that I may attend to the Blessed One's teaching. Then I could accomplish much. It is in this way I develop mindfulness of death. So this monk is saying, when he's eating one meal, so that might take 45 minutes or 1 hour. When I used to practice eating meditation in the monastery when I was a younger monk, even now I take quite a while, usually the last one to finish eating, but I used to take an hour because I was practicing not necessarily mindfulness of death, but I was practicing, moment to moment kind of vipassana training. Awareness of all the different movements and so on. But anyway, so this monk said he practiced in the time it takes him to eat one meal. And then another monk speaks up and says, hey, well, I think, may I live just the time it takes to eat half an alms meal or half his meal. In that way, I may attend to the Buddha's teaching and accomplish much. That's how I practice mindfulness of death. And then still another monk tells him, this is how I practice mindfulness of death. May I live just the time it takes to chew and swallow 4 or 5 mouthfuls of food. In that way, I attend to the Buddha's teaching in just that short time of eating 4 or 5 mouthfuls of food. I could then accomplish much. And then yet even another monk says, well, may I live just the time it takes to chew and swallow a single mouthful of food so that I may attend to the Buddha's teaching. I could then accomplish much. That's the way I develop mindfulness of death. That means it means each one of these, they're intensifying their intensity of the contemplation. And then finally, and this other monk, this last monk, says, wait a minute, let me tell you how I practice mindfulness of death. And the Buddha says, okay, how do you practice mindfulness of death? And this monk says, may I live just the time it takes to breathe out after breathing in, or to breathe in after breathing out, so that I may attend to the Buddha's teaching. I could then accomplish much. It is in this way that I develop mindfulness of death. And then after hearing all those periods of time in which people are practicing their reflection, the Buddha tells them, or says to them, he says, monks, those of you who develop mindfulness of death in those first 5 or 6 ways, one practices a day and a night, one practices just 1 day, one practices for a half a day, the other practices for just for a full alms meal, one practices for a half a meal, and the one who eats only 4 or 5 mouthfuls of food. All of those above, he says, these are monks who dwell heedlessly. That means they're sluggish, they're not energetic enough. They develop mindfulness of death sluggishly for the destruction of the taints. But then he says, the monks who develop mindfulness of death for the length of time it takes to chew and swallow a single mouthful of food, and the one who contemplates mindfulness of death for just the length of time to breathe out after breathing in, or breathing in after breathing out, these are the ones who develop mindfulness of death keenly for the destruction of the taints. Therefore, monks, you should train yourselves thus. We will dwell heedfully. We will develop mindfulness of death keenly for the destruction of the taints. Thus, you should train yourself. So, that is the end of that first sutta. So again, in this sutta we just now read, that all those things that the other monks were talking about, reviewing any defilements are in their mind. So even while the monk is eating, his alms meal, if any unwholesome thoughts come into their mind, they there and then get rid of those unwholesome thoughts and try to contemplate to overcome those particular hindrances or negative thoughts. Not to wait until the meal is over or for the night and the day, but even while just chewing each mouthful of food, if one was really, really concentrated, just chewing one mouthful of food, it is conceivable that one could attain stream entry, or if one is already a stream enter, they could attain the next level or the next level. And there's instances in other sutras where monks have been able to do that. Now, having read these two suttas, I want to just give another little kind of analogy that's in another sutta called it's about the 4 thoroughbred horses. And I've told this little analogy before in previous talks or in retreats when we cover the mindfulness of death, of developing the sense of urgency, the same as these monks have been doing. But the Buddha gave an analogy of the 4, kind of good horses. And so there was 4 horses that, were in a barn owned by a farmer. So this farmer used the 4 horses for plowing his field or doing other work. And this farmer had a farmhouse up on the hill, and the barn was down a little bit. And so it goes that when the farmer goes out of his house in the early morning to go down to prepare the horses, so the farmer leaves his house and it has a screen door with hinges, and the screen door kind of slams on the door of the house, and this first good horse wakes up on that, hearing that sound, says, "Oh, the farmer, my master, is coming to get ready for work. Let me get up and get ready." But the other 3 horses continue to sleep. And then the farmer goes down the hill to the barn and opens the creaky door. Those old wooden doors with rusty hinges. So, opens the door and you hear the, kind of creaking noise. And the second horse hears that and jumps up and says, "Oh, my master is here now. Let me get up and prepare for the work." The other 2 keep sleeping. So then the farmer goes into the central pillar in the barn where there's a lot of chains and goads hanging. And he takes one of the goads off the pillar, and it makes a jingling sound. And then the third horse hears that sound and then gets up and says, "Oh, my master is here now. Let me prepare myself for today's work." And the fourth one keeps on sleeping. And then only when the farmer gets that goad and goes over and pokes the horse in the ribs, does the horse wake up and say, "Oh, my master is here now, let me get up." And so, and then the Buddha compared these horses to different people in the world, how they live in terms of their keenness for practicing the Dhamma or contemplating the reality of death. So actually, this analogy I've given before, and some of you have probably heard about it, but and especially in this time of the COVID pandemic, right? So let's say last year when news about the COVID first started coming out, and something is happening in China, and there's some disease brewing, and there was talk about it, some people may be coming over to America with it, but still it wasn't much, news. So a lot of people didn't think too much about it. And then, a couple months later, when all of a sudden a lot of cases starting to come up here in the States, right? And it was starting to spread. Then people started, thinking, oh my gosh, this is something serious. Like, the thing is starting to spread out of control, And so, they might start then preparing themselves. Oh yeah, maybe we should wear a mask, And they were starting to tell people to wear a mask and to keep a distance. And some people started doing it, but not a whole lot yet, right? But the Chinese, now when they first heard about it, they were wearing masks a lot way before we were wearing them over here. They took it a little bit more seriously. And then it was only until, a couple months later when this thing had spread all over the States by that time, right? And more and more people, the death toll was creeping up all the time, and the CDC was telling all these things that we should do, and they were having lockdowns, and then people got a little bit more serious about it. Yeah, this thing is spreading. People were the news every day about people dying, and very fast, even within a week of being in a hospital, people were dying, and they were telling people you got to wear masks and do all this. So more and more people started doing it, but still we saw that a lot of people didn't. And even the president of the United States didn't take it very seriously, right? So anyway, and then then the second wave came, and now there more and more people. So I'm just saying that as it went on, more people were taking it seriously. But even today, now 9 months afterward, when the death rate is still climbing, there's still people that, say it's a hoax and don't take it very seriously. New Year's Eve parties, people not wearing masks. So anyway, that's just an example of how, or one's own family, people in one's own family then get contracted, and then maybe the others will say, we better wear the mask now, and so on. So unfortunately, it takes. So these people live heedlessly. I just gave that example because it's a current example, and we can relate to that because we've seen on the news, or we even know people who didn't take this seriously. So the same way with the fact that death could come at any time. Okay, so that is basically that, this particular teaching on the mindfulness of death, that it's really the best type of meditation, of course, is the insight meditation. And, contemplating this body as being, the death could happen by so many different means, either internal from our own karmic conditionings and the results of our karma, or by external natural disasters or these diseases, and so on. But again, the main import, the takeaway from these sutras is not to think that you have the luxury to put off meditating or practicing the sila, because we may not have that luxury to live that long. So now, with having gone over all that, let's see if anybody has any questions. It looks like there's only one question in the chat room. I don't know if it's a question. It could be just some comment. Let me see. This person is just saying, I didn't get your attachments. Well, then you weren't on our mailing list, then perhaps. You send me this to my info@lionwisdom.org, and I'll put you on our mailing list. If you haven't been getting any of this previous, because every week I've been sending out attachments. So is this the first one you haven't got, or you haven't gotten any of them, that means you're not on our mailing list. But if it's the only one you didn't get, then I don't know what's happened to it. But I don't have anything to write this down with. So it's better if you send me your email address to our info@lionwisdom.org, or maybe Prashant can put that up if you're not getting these attachments. Okay, if there's no other questions through the chat box, if anybody just wants to ask a question by unmuting their mics, then perhaps we could do that.
Hey, I have a question. Like, what sort of mindfulness? Are there different gradation of mindfulness which one can develop, and which Buddha is exhorting us toward? Like we heard so much kind of mindfulness. So what's the quality of mindfulness?
The mindfulness and the clear comprehension. So it's not only, the mindfulness is about remembering. So remembering these very things that the Buddha talked about in the sutta. By contemplating that death could happen at any time. It could happen in the daytime. It could happen during the night. It could happen while you're eating. Every conceivable, people have died in every conceivable possible time and way. So it's just developing this understanding and use that as the sense of urgency, not to take it for granted that you're gonna live a long time. So it's basically just that, contemplating the inevitability of death, and it could happen to any time, and to overcome the laziness to practice. The actual practice is practicing all of the above. Practice right understanding, right thought, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration. There's no just one particular practice necessarily. It's about developing the sense of urgency to practice. Now, the mindfulness of the body sutta, you contemplate this body as being, just the different body parts, the four elements, and then going through the cemetery contemplations and practicing the clear comprehension in all of one's movements. At every step in your practice walking meditation, each step, I might die before my next step. Because you could stumble and fall down. You could have a heart attack in the middle of that step. You could have a heart attack and die even before finishing that step. So even practicing walking meditation, you could have added, one monk could have added that. Well, when I practice walking meditation, with each step, before even finishing one step, I practice mindfulness of death. So that if he died before the end of that first step even, he would have accomplished much had he attained stream entry or some higher state, before practicing, finishing one or two steps. So that is, that is how the Buddha wanted us to practice.
Thank you, Bhante. Bhante, there is a question in the chat.
Yeah. how do we prevent the feeling of not doing enough from becoming another source of stress in our life? Is it a question of quality of practice or quantity of practice we should be concerned with? Well, if the quality of your practice is maybe not the best, then it's going to take us longer to attain what is unattained. If the quality of our practice is already very high, but it can always be higher. So that's not a question. I mean, for most people, the practice can always improve until one's attained. The Buddha even, he admonished even the Sotapannas and once returners and even never returners. Don't be negligent. Practice. So even their quality of somebody who's already attained the paths and the fruits, they haven't finished the path yet. So their quality is still not high enough until they've reached that state of arahantship. Of course, that's from the Buddha's, point of view. I mean, from his, kind of scale. So yes, it does seem daunting. So if we have the feeling we're not doing enough and it's becoming stressful, then do enough until you don't feel stressful about it. That's about it, There's no other way, really. Now, sure, you can feel good about your practice, but, if you die and the mind is still not as, gone to the end, then, again, you're at the mercy of the karma. And if you're okay with that, it's okay, it's okay. If you're okay with where your practice is, that's okay for you, then okay. For you, that's okay. For somebody else, it may not be okay. So, it's all an individual thing. So, anyway, that's this is the way that the Buddha encouraged people. Now he was talking to monks, of course, and monks should ideally be practicing at that more sense of urgent level. Otherwise, why are they monks? The whole purpose of being a monk or taking the monastic life is to have the sort of optimal conditions and time to do the practice. But but the same instructions he gave for monks can still apply to lay people. Because there's a lot of lay people whose lives are such that they've arranged their lives where they could have the time to practice more and more, but the mind gets easily caught up in habits of procrastination and laziness, even though people could have the time. So that's why the Buddha always reminded people of that over and over again, because of there's just the time of our death is uncertain. No one knows in advance. Only somebody with a highly developed mind, such as the Buddha or some others, can really be able to determine the time of their death. Of course, until maybe, if they're in a hospital and the doctor's already told them, you got 3 or 4 days to live, then they might, then know when they're going to die. But by that time, it's probably too late. And that it's hard to practice a Dhamma when you're sick and invalid, or you don't have much energy to practice. That's the main thing. So, everybody's looking for the the magic pill or the instant practice, and there isn't such a thing, and that's why we don't have the luxury to put off the practice for later, hoping that we're going to live long, and we're healthy now, but hundreds of times every day you can read in the paper about people that were healthy and strong who died, were dead the next day by so many different types of reasons, whether it's an accident or it's so many things, unknown karmic ailments and so on. So it's a question of both the quality and the quantity of our practice. If the quality is not so high, then the quantity should be more. If the quality is high, the quantity still should be more until you reach the goal, basically. But we know that most people are not going to have the right conditions to do that. So again, everybody has to practice at their own level. And this is simply the Buddha's teaching. He put it out there, and who's ready to hear that and who has the right conditions to really practice, then good. And if people don't, then okay, everyone's going to practice at their own level, and the Buddha only points the way, and each person has to practice as they see fit, and to a large extent that's going to be conditioned by their past karma and the paramis that they have accumulated, the merits they have accumulated from the past life and what they're doing in this life. So, okay, friends. So, is there any last questions? Otherwise, let's go ahead and we'll finish with that. It doesn't seem like there was too many more questions about that. I mean, there's not a whole lot of questions to be asked. It's a matter of just practicing as much as we can. And, until one has reached the goal, practice is never going to be, enough. Okay, let's take a few minutes to use the restroom, drink some water. It's going to take me a few minutes to set up for the little spot to lead you through a few exercises, okay? Okay, friends, just try to stand straight. Gently close your eyes. Just feel your feet pressing the floor. You feel the height and weight of the body over the feet. Just feel the arms hanging from the shoulders. Then begin taking some deep, slow breaths, drawing the air from the lower lungs up through the middle to the top of the chest. Feel that expansion in the top of the chest. Hold the air in a few seconds, then slowly breathe out, feeling the last bit of air go out of the lungs. Try to take several deep, slow breaths like that. We combine these movements with that deep, slow breathing, holding the breath in for 2 or 3 seconds, and that particular position. Always keeping the attention focused in the body to try to feel the sensations that are generated by the movement and the breathing. So on the next in breath, raise the arms over the head, interlock the fingers, turn the palms up, straighten the arms, stretch your head back, and arch backwards a little bit. On the out breath, turn the hands down and touch the top of the head. And again, in breath, palms up, straighten the arms, head back, arch backward. Out breath, touch the top of the head. Third time, hold that upward stretch longer. Feel the sensation. And release the fingers on the out breath, arms back to the sides. Just relax, gently close the eyes. Feel the increased sensations in your hands and fingers. Try to feel the whole standing body. Remember standing, the present moment of the body. Just letting go of your thoughts. And then next on an in breath, push up on the toes and raise the arms over the head in this way, facing the hands toward each other and stretch. The out breath, come back down, arms to the side, heels to the floor. Use the breathing to help lift and lower the body. In breath up. Out breath. In. Out. Just relax. Keep feeling the body. Feel the feet pressing the floor, the arms and hands at the sides. Clothing touching the skin on different places. The head balanced on top. Feel all the increased internal body sensation. Learning how to keep the mind grounded in the body in the present moment is the first stage of contemplating death. It means contemplating the nature of consciousness. Just remember standing, standing, standing. And now spread the feet apart about 3 feet. Hold the arms out to the sides. We'll do twisting from side to side. Breathe in. On the out breath, look at the right hand and twist around to the right, keeping your eyes focused on the hand going back. In breath, come back to the front. Let the feet turn with the body. And then the other side, out breath. In breath, front. Continue that again to the right, out breath. In breath, front. Again to the left, out breath. In breath. Once more to each side. In breath, front. And relax. Feel all the sensations in the arms and shoulders. Feel each foot pressing the floor. Feeling the clothing touching the skin on different places. Remember standing, this body exactly as it is here and now. Okay, we're going to do one more exercise, backward and forward bending, forward and backward bending. So again, you have to be careful with the back bend, not to bend back too far the first time, especially when you're lifting up from a back bend. Careful of any dizziness or shaking of the body. So let the hands touch the front of your legs. So breathe in. On the out breath, bend forward. Keep the head up. And let the hands come down to your knees the first time. Keep the legs straight. Try to flatten the spine, getting the hump out of the spine. And the in-breath, lift up. Move the hands under the buttocks for support. Let the head go back. On the out breath, bend backward carefully, not too far. Keep the eyes open. Be aware of any shaking. In-breath, lift up the in-breath. And then the out-breath, again, bend forward. Let the hands come below the knees. Still keep the head up, legs straight. In-breath, lift up. Again, the back bend, try to go back a little more. Out-breath. In-breath, lift up. Be careful. And the third time, let the hands come down as far as you can toward the feet. Still kind of keep the head lifted up. Don't look directly down at the floor. And hold that position longer. Feel the stretch in the back of the legs muscles. The in-breath, come back up. And one last time, the back bend with the out breath. Be careful. In breath up. And the out breath, just relax. Feel the whole body. Gently close the eyes. Feel the vibrations all over the body. Feel each foot pressing the floor. The arms and hands at the side. Clothing touching the skin on different places. Head balanced on top. You feel the sensations on your face. Just mentally remember standing, present moment. Actually, in practicing mindfulness of the body, if you're able to keep your attention totally focused in the body, feeling the sensations without allowing the mind to go outside, you could theoretically, understand the deathless state of the present moment. And the mind is grounded in the present moment without thoughts. If one could maintain that long enough, one could experience that transcendence of ego consciousness. And that's practicing mindfulness of death. Because death of the ego. Okay, now bring the feet back together. So there's one last exercise, the head turning. So standing straight but relaxed. On the in-breath, turn the head to the right. And look over your right shoulder. Turn your eyes to the right. See something behind you. The out breath, turn the head 180 degrees back to the left. Look over the left shoulder. In breath back to the right. Concentrate into the neck vertebrae. Out breath left. In breath right. On the next in-breath, let the head stop in the center. Feel the whole body. Feel that life force in the body. That life force that keeps the heart beating and the lungs expanding and contracting. Which could be snuffed out in an instant. Okay, now go ahead and come back to your seats for sitting meditation. Okay, friends, we'll start our meditation practice. As usual, I'm going to turn off my video. Just try to sit comfortably, but keep the back and the head in straight alignment. Try to find the center of gravity of the head and spine over the hips by gently kind of moving your whole head and backwards a little bit until you come close to that kind of backwards tipping point. Then back off come forward just a slight bit so it's a little bit more comfortable. Just try to feel that straight posture. Now focus the attention down to where your buttocks press the seat. Feel that solid grounding to the seat floor. Feel that sensation of hardness, the buttocks pressing the seat. Try to feel some sensations of the buttocks pressing the seat. And just understand and remind yourself the body is sitting. And let the awareness kind of move down the legs toward your feet. Just feeling any different sensations on your legs or knees. And then feeling the feet underneath. Try to feel the heels and the arches and the toes. Feel where the socks touch the skin of the feet, producing sensation. Feel any other kind of sensations on the feet. Especially try to feel some pulsation, the pulse of blood in the feet, or where the toes touch together, or where the feet are crossed. Again, just remind yourself sitting, it's the present moment. Now feel your hands and fingers. Feel the subtle pulse of blood, other little sensations in your hands and fingers. Feel where the fingers, the thumbs touch together. And feel the weight of the arms hanging from the shoulders. Feel where the clothing touches the skin of your arms and shoulders. It's the present moment awareness. Again, just remember sitting. Now feel the head balanced on top of the neck. And try to feel the lower jaw with the teeth and gums embedded in the lower jaw. Even try to feel the tongue laying in the mouth. Where the tongue touches some teeth. Feel the raw sensation. And feel the lips touching together. The upper lip touches the lower lip. Feel any dryness or moistness sensation. And just feel the skin stretched over the front of the skull. Just imagine or feel that skin stretched over the face. subtle prickling sensation. And feel the nose in the middle of that face, the outer nose. And take a few deep, slow breaths to feel the air moving through the nostrils. Many thousands of times a day, the air is moving in and out of the nostrils into the body to keep this body alive. And if the breathing stops for more than a few minutes, this body would start dying. And death could occur. Many different things could cause this breath to stop flowing. Now feel the eyes and the sockets and the eyelids stretched over the eyeballs. Kind of just like gazing upon the eyes. With the inner gaze. To feel the subtle eye movement. And the blood pulsing in the capillaries of the eyes or eyelids. Again, just remember sitting. And from that point behind the eyes, kind of just mentally feel the outline of the sitting body, like seeing the body from the inside. Just watching from the inside, just feeling the sensations from your feet, legs, hands, chest, head. Try to feel the outline of the sitting body. Try to hold that outline of the sitting body in the mind's eye. Sitting, sitting, sitting. Just feeling all the different sensations where the clothing rubs against the skin of the outer body. And the subtler sensations underneath the skin. Now again, take some deep, slow breaths to oxygenate the bloodstream, to feel the more dynamic expanding and contracting of the breathing. After breathing in, hold the air in the lungs a few seconds. Imagine or feel the oxygen in the lungs going into the bloodstream and out to the whole body. And on the out breath, you feel that pleasant and relaxing sensation of the out breath. Just take a few more deep, slow breaths like that, cultivating this basic mindfulness, present moment mindfulness. And breathing in, letting go of the past and future. Breathing out, sitting here and now. Breathing in, letting go of the past and future. Breathing out, sitting here and now. Breathing in, feeling the whole body. Breathing out, feeling the whole body. We're going to count our breaths from 1 to 10 to try to develop a better concentration. Try to continue to take some deeper, slower breaths. On the next expanding in breath, mentally count to 1. Hold the breath in a couple of seconds. With the contracting out breath, so count 1. The next expanding in breath, 2. Contracting out breath, 2. Next in breath, 3. Out breath, 3. In breath, 4. Out breath, 4. In breath, 5. Out breath, 5. In breath, 6. Out breath, 6. In breath, 7. Out breath, 7. In breath, 8. Out breath, 8. In breath, 9. Out breath, 9. In breath, 10. out breath 10. Now discontinue the counting, discontinue any deliberate deep breathing, letting the breathing return to its shorter, uncontrolled rhythm. But continue to feel it, follow the subtle movements, the expanding and contracting sensations. Just knowing when the breath is coming in and knowing when the breath is going out, and knowing it by feeling it. Try to feel those sensations where the clothing are rubbing against the skin of the stomach, the rib cage, or chest, as it expands and contracts, producing those sensations. Try to keep the attention focused on that. You can make these mental notes to help remember. In sitting, out sitting, just over and over and over again. In sitting, out sitting. It's the ongoing, continuous connection to the body, the present moment of the body. In sitting, out sitting. This breathing is going on within the larger sitting body. It's called feeling the body in the body, feeling the breathing cycle within the larger sitting body. It's that natural connection to the present moment. Because life and death both start in this breathing body. Life started when the breaths began going in and out of the body, birth. When the breath stops going in and out of the body, more than a few minutes, death will occur. Especially be aware of the outgoing breath, and follow the outgoing breath. Feel the last bit of air go out of the lung and feel that brief pause. And the next breath comes in. Of course, you take it for granted that the next breath will come in At some point, that next breath won't come back in. This body would die. If death were to occur, would you have any regrets about your life so far? Do you still have any unwholesome, harmful, negative thoughts and habits? Or any people you haven't forgiven, or hold grudges against? This is what was talked about in the Sutta. Just making the effort to cultivate a deeper level of concentrated awareness, grounded in the breathing body. And there's two levels of our life. One is this physical life that's going on with the breathing and the heart beating and all the different sensations that you feel in the body. But at the same time, there's the parallel dimension of the mind, mental activity, memories, thoughts, perceptions, going through the mind. The practice of meditation is keeping the mind in the middle, is observing both the body and the mind, not getting carried away by any bodily sensations, not getting carried away by any mental memories or thought. Just watching the flow of impermanence in both this body and mind. Just breath by breath, moment by moment. and being alert for the last bit of air going out of the lungs with each out breath, which could be the last breath. Who knows? If you could actually be aware of the last breath leaving the body at the time of death, not grasping at any of the five aggregates, any body or mind activity. That's the point where one could realize liberation by letting go of that attachment to any body or mind phenomena, experiencing the deathless state. due to some inner or outer karmic misfortune, this breath could be knocked out of this body and cease. Would we have any regrets, any unfinished business? If so, one should make the effort to finish that business, the business of accumulated greed, hatred, and delusion, of attachments to I, me, and mine. Do not think, oh, death won't happen to me now. Sambi sankara anicchati yada panyaya pasati atanibindati dukkhi Esamango Visuddhiya. All conditioned things, the five aggregates of this body, mind, and world are impermanent. They arise only to pass away and die. When one understands this with the eye of wisdom, one becomes disenchanted with suffering. This is the path to purity, to freedom. And thus spoke the Buddha. Now begin some deep, slow breathing again. Let us send out metta vibrations to ourselves and all other beings. Just take some deep, slow breaths, holding in your breath for several or more seconds, and try to imagine or feel that oxygenated blood going through the whole body, mind, nervous system, charging it up with pure energy, pure wisdom, pure love. And feel the relaxing contractions of the out breath, feeling the last bit of air go out of the lungs. And then the next in breath. Just while taking a few deep, slow breaths like that, sending metta to your own body and mind. Just with the thoughts of, may I be well, peaceful, and wise. May I be free from greed, hatred, fear, and ignorance. May I have the patience, strength, mindfulness, and wisdom to meet and overcome all difficulties in life. May I be able to continue to develop my understanding of Dhamma and the practice of meditation to overcome the fear of death. Prepare the mind for that inevitable moment. May I be well, peaceful, and wise. In the same way, send these same thought feelings outward to your parents, family members. Just with each out breath, holding in the breath, imagine that with the out breath, the same metta vibrations, best wishes to your parents, family members, relatives, good friends. Wishing them to be free from greed, hatred, fear, and ignorance, to be well, peaceful, and wise. And sending these, again, with each out breath, just imagine sending these vibrations of metta, pure wisdom, love, energy, outward across the countryside, even for those living on the East Coast of the USA and all the trouble they're having in Washington. Send some extra metta vibrations into Washington, D.C., where there's so much turmoil and confusion going on tonight. Wishing that all these beings can be free from greed, hatred, and delusion. They could develop mindfulness, concentration, and wisdom to free their minds from suffering. With each out breath, sending these thought, feelings of metta, best wishes, pure love, wisdom, energy, vibration, out across the whole earth and the world, with the idea or thoughts, may all living beings be well, peaceful, and wise, free from greed, hatred, fear, and ignorance, free from the pain, sorrow, and sufferings of body and mind brought about by their unskillful thought, speech, and action. May all beings have the patience, strength, mindfulness, and wisdom to meet and overcome all difficulties in life. May all beings have the ability to the right circumstances to hear the Dhamma and practice meditation to free their minds from confusion and suffering. May all beings be well, peaceful, and wise. May all beings be able to live peacefully and harmoniously together, knowing that in the end we're all going to die. So what's the use of all this quarreling, greed, hatred, and delusion? May all beings be well, peaceful, and wise. If you haven't yet made any New Year's resolution, try to make the increased practice of meditation your New Year's resolution. And how to finish, invite you to join in chanting the word sadhu 3 times with the out breath. Take a deep breath. Sadhu. 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 And place the hands at the edge of your knees. Just take one more deep in breath while breathing in. Stretch your head back and pull the hands against the knees to arch your spine backwards. Feel the sensation. Lift the head up on an in breath, and on the out breath, press the chin to the top of the chest. Stretch the neck vertebra. And lift the chin up level on an in breath. Relax on the out breath. Put a smile on your face. Okay, friends. So thank you for joining this evening, and let's try to strengthen that resolve in this new year to, increase the amount of your, especially of your meditation practice, developing your mindfulness and concentration, taking the chance to go on retreats whenever the opportunity comes, practice the M&Ms, minutes of meditation during the day. Okay, friends, so we'll see you again.
Thank you, Bhante.
Mindfulness a day keeps dukkha away. Sutta a day keeps delusion away.
Thank you, Bhante.
Namo Buddhaya.
Bhante.
Everyone saranai.
Everyone saranai.
Isema veva.
Sadhu, sadhu.
Sadhu Bhante.
Subha lut arudak veva.
Bhavan said us the
Veva.
same way.
Tema veva Bhante.
Veva.